Are we here? Hey, everybody, welcome to the garage. Hello, Dungeon Denzians. I'm Brendan LaSalle, and with me,
Hey, it's Cory Kojo Gahsman.
and welcome to everybody for the first ever episode of Dungeon Tuneup, which is going to be the show where we are going to work on. We're going to work on we're going to workshop some rooms on here and some encounters, and we're going to share our knowledge and fellowship, and see if we can't make every encounter just a little bit better. We're very excited about it. Thanks for tuning in here. If you're here into the the Twitch stream, and if you're watching on Twitch, thanks very much. Let me say, hey everybody. Wow. Hello, Odysseus. What's up? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thanks very much. And if you're catching us on YouTube later on down the road, we're equally grateful. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell, and we will continue to send you all kinds of groovy content as we produce it and as we come up with it. So what the heck even is this? What is Dungeon Tuneup? So the purpose of the show is to help designers improve individual encounters. In the future, we are going to actually feature input from y'all. So if you are aspiring designers out there, if you have a room that you want to try to workshop, you can go ahead and send me your ideas and your thoughts. I'm going to put my my email into the chat. And Cory, say something great while I'm typing.
Something great. Yeah. No, I'm excited to be on here. I've been tinkering with dungeons for a lot of years. I don't have a whole lot out there as far as published stuff. I do have one adventure that made its way into Damn Magazine #3, Portal to the Plane of Probability. And but yeah, I've been certainly a lot of people maybe have played in things that I've created at cons. So I usually write my own con stuff, even though it isn't published. So yeah, so I've been using a lot of tools in my workshop to, tweak rooms, get inspiration for rooms and things in my adventures.
All right, give me some 4 examples of the material and the things that you use to help you flesh out your
Sure, yeah. So I've got a couple of my favorites. I actually got them over here. So the Tome of Adventure Design by Frog God Games.
Nice.
Which I think is still available in print from their website. I can actually throw, I think, a link in the chat for everybody if they want to go check that out. But that's a great resource for dungeon design, dungeon dressing, traps, tricks, all kinds of random tables to roll on. I'm a sucker for random tables, so I definitely do a lot with that. I've used the 1E AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide Appendix I, which is for dungeon dressing. That's useful. Again, some of the things I really like is, like, for me, like, I'll have this room and I'll have a general idea for what I want to do with it, but I want to spice it up a little bit. So I'll just roll on a random table and see what comes up. And sometimes something crazy comes up, like there's a single boot. So I'll just throw that in there. And it gets my brain going, like, okay, why is there just one boot in there? What's going on? And that kind of sometimes helps me spark some creativity about what I want to do with that. So, and then the other thing I do a lot with is I tend to flesh out my NPCs quite a bit. More for me necessarily than for the players. Like, I don't, it's more for me to get a feel for what the NPC is going to be like in the story when it interacts with the PCs. But one of my favorite resources, and something I found years ago in Dragon Magazine 184, there's an article called the 7 Sentence Npc. It was written by someone named C.M. Klein. And it's just basically a kind of a blueprint for how to flesh out an NPC, generate kind of just a brief paragraph of background. And it's got a structure. Like it says, the first sentence is describing the NPC's occupation. The second sentence is a physical description. The third sentence is about their abilities and skills. Fourth sentence is, their values that the PCs must discover. So it kind of just runs through like a whole, like, here's 7 sentences. If you do this for every NPC from the creator's side, then when you're running that adventure, you have some idea about, okay, how's this NPC going to interact with people? And it gives little hooks that the players can latch onto and say, okay, this PC is more than just a two-dimensional kind of character. Now here's something interesting. Here's something I want to, look at more with them. So that comes in really handy too.
Oh, fantastic, man. That is an excellent answer. Okay, let me ask you this. Do you have any questions for me now that we're getting started over here at the old garage?
I just obviously you got a lot of years of design experience here too. So I'm kind of curious to see how because I know we're going to be looking at one of your old rooms from years ago.
Yes, we
so
are.
I'm super excited to see kind of like now what your perspective on it is now, so much later.
Cool.
When you revisit it. So because you've obviously had a lot of years of design and play testing,
and even more of play testing.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
yes. So if you're watching out there, you might be asking yourself, why do we bring weird Uncle Brendan in here? Why don't we get, why don't we get one of the big kids, Harley or whatever? I'll tell you what, I like, because I have the time and I'm available, and I really wanted to do this. I really wanted to, I will never say I'm like the world's greatest game designer or anything, but I have been doing this for a long time, and long enough where I've made every mistake that you can make in dungeon design. And that's a huge thing. You know what I'm saying? Once you've seen these things fall on their faces and correct them over time, then you learn. So I've just done it enough time, put enough time at design and also with play testing. Like that's the thing. I just run so many games that like I've seen how design translates into things at the table. So that's I hope that's what I'm bringing. I hope that I can bring, really help out with things going forward. So if you're watching, if you have you can send me room ideas, you can send me an actual room breakdown, things that you want us to go over on the show, and we'll actually break that down for you, and we'll see how that see if we can't tune your dungeon up a little bit. So Kojo was 100% correct. We are going to start off with a special subject. In future, I am hoping that we will be able to workshop your adventures. We're going to workshop your rooms and your ideas and things. And I'm down for the show's format's going to be pretty open. So if you want to just, any bit of design philosophy, write me and we'll try to work it in, and we'll try to discuss it here on the stream. But tonight, since this is the first one, we haven't had a chance to actually reach out to anybody for any of this yet. We are indeed going to go over one of my old dungeon rooms. Okay, so this is an adventure called Escape from Catastrophe Rock, and we're going to go over the encounter. This is sort of like the encounter with one of the big bads of the dungeon, not the big bad, I don't think, but like one of the big bads. There's a few different stages to what's going on inside there. So Escape from Catastrophe Rock never got published, but it will be soon. So I wrote Escape from Catastrophe Rock back in 2009, in June, July. And I'm really, like I said, it was an opportunity for a while there. Joseph was looking to do a line of adventures that was going to be advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So we were just, we started out doing it, and then for a lot of reasons, we never went forward with it. But the main reason was Dungeon Crawl Classics. Joseph was looking for an alternative to publishing some of the modern versions of D&D that didn't speak to him, deeply like some do. And we, thought about going back to AD&D, and finally he was like, well, you know what? I'll just create my own system. So this adventure is at some point, they are looking to convert it to 5th edition, and it'll be out there as a 5th edition adventure, right? But before they get to it, before they get their hooks in it and rip it apart, we are going to look at how it looked originally and see if there's not something that we can do to improve the dungeon and kind of like see if we can't fix it up here as an example. I don't think that this is the final version of what we're going to actually put out as a 5th edition thing will probably be very, very different. But let's see if we can tonight, using this as an example, talk about design philosophy, talk about what we want to see in an adventure, and how we think we can improve things from a design standpoint. So thank you for the nice comments into the comments. I appreciate y'all. All right, so Escape from Catastrophe Rock. The basis of it is you are shipwrecked at this place called Catastrophe Rock, and you wind up washed up on the shore. You wind up finding your way into this ancient. I'm kind of gliding over the reasons that you're going there. There's a hunt and everything going on for this terrible villain, but eventually you find your way into this underground labyrinth where it's a dodge. There is an old sea captain, a pirate captain who we're searching for, but what the players don't know and the GM knows is that the pirate captain has been at this point in the dungeon has been his identity has been stolen by this illusionist who we're about to meet, and he's using it to wreak havoc on the open seas. So I am going to go ahead and read this room to y'all. Sit back and let's and Kojo, any questions you got, just holler out when it comes up.
All right.
Okay, so this is area 9 of the dungeon, Rattlestash's chamber. Rattlestash is the name of the illusionist. The secret door leads to a 5-foot passageway that leads to a tiny claustrophobic room with a 4.5-foot ceiling. Already, I already see I would never put leads to twice in a sentence. That's terrible. That's a writing error there. And that's the thing. Like, I wrote this in 2009. I'm 13 years better at writing now, and I just wouldn't put a sentence like that in a thing. That's terrible. But it's a secret door that leads to a short corridor that leads to this chamber, and as we'll see, there is a concealed door in the back of it that leads further into the dungeon. If Rattlestash, that's our illusionist, if Rattlestash has not already confronted the PC team elsewhere, he is here along with his loyal companion, Bluto the Sasquatch. His earring of subterfuge, which is a new magic item, his earring of subterfuge makes him a perfect duplicate of the real albino, which is the name of that pirate captain. I realize how unfortunate that is. That's the first thing we're going over. Trust me, A Sasquatch is a burrowing mammal, and as such, gnomes can speak their language, and the two have been loyal companions since Rattlestash discovered Bluto in his garden, eating his turnips long ago. That's actually my favorite detail of the whole encounter, to tell you the truth. I love the idea that this gnome illusionist one day goes outside and hears this Sasquatch just, digging around. Hey, you, get out! But can speak to him because he can speak burrowing mammal. As the albino, so he is in disguise. He's disguised by the illusion. As the albino, Rattlestash demands the party drops their weapons and surrender. Assuming they do not do so, the illusionist attempts to hide behind Bluto and cast mirror image. Then confusion from his spell scroll. He will attempt to tie the party up with his magic while Bluto enters melee with them. If Bluto falls, Rattlestash will certainly attempt to flee. Okay, so that's the encounter. Then there's this as we talk about what's actually in the room. In this room is a comfortable sleeping pallet, 2 locked chests, a lap desk leaning against a wall, and a tall wicker hamper. Searchers find the following objects in them. First locked chest. This chest contains a leather-bound almanac with detailed information on local weather and tide conditions, a small leather with the word-to-word exchange that break the albino's code. So this is a clue to a code that takes place at a different part in the dungeon. The chest of and the almanac includes instructions on how to sound the bull roarer to avoid the dragon turtle. There's a dragon turtle out. The dragon turtle is the catastrophe of Catastrophe Rock. All these ships get sunk there because the dragon turtle is crashes them out. But he's trained with this bull roarer. He ignores ships that go past using this bull roarer to placate him. In this room, the chest also contains Rattlestash's spell book and some gold, 382 gold pieces. Pretty good haul for an old D&D adventure. The second locked chest, it's got a hidden needle trap. If the chest is unlocked with the key or by a thief's open lock ability before the trap is neutralized, the owner is injected with white kelp poison and must save versus poison or fall into a deep coma for 1 die 6 hours. That's quite a shot there. A neutralized poison spell revives a victim from their comatose state. The chest holds 643 electrum pieces. Remember electrum pieces? Yeah. And a velvet pouch with 20 pieces of cut jade worth 25 gold pieces each. And then in the lap desk, it's a small plank of wood with a fixed paper blotter surface mounted to a cushion. There's a particularly well-hidden seam in one corner of the cushion. Feeling around inside reveals 2 hidden keys, which correspond to the locks on both jets. So if they search, they can find keys and bypass these locks without actually having to make any die rolls. Then there is a carefully camouflaged passageway at the south end of the room, treat as a concealed door. The passageway is extremely narrow, and unless the party is actively feeling along the southern wall, they are 90% likely to miss the gap. That was a very common way you would describe things in the old AD&D adventures. You would just give it a percentage chance, which I wouldn't do anymore. You know what I mean? I would, that it's the same for a dumb guy or a smart guy, a thief or a warrior, but that is an old trope of how the game used to go. So carefully camouflaged passageway, 90% like with the gap, which is constructed to give the illusion that there is no gap at all with a special pattern of stones. The passageway is only 2 feet wide and leads to areas 10. So which is the next area in the dungeon. So there's a lot of things that are going on here, obviously. It's cramped. It is very, let me see, the blue Scotch. I'm reading this thing, story time. Yeah, the real albino. No, okay, that's my first problem with this. Okay, I would never name a villain the albino. Since then, I've learned about the kind of tropes that people use. It's lazy writing. There's a trope called the albino trope, where essentially albinos are always strange and weird, and they are often villains. I was specifically thinking of an albino villain when I wrote this, who was the albino, which was an assassin who was featured in a 70s movie that I love. I'm reading your comments. Those are hilarious. Pluto and the Sasquatch. Pluto and the Sasquatch would be like a show about a trucker and his dog. You know what I mean? Like they'd go from town to town, having adventures, maybe fighting crime. What do you think?
Yeah.
But I would never. I might put a character in a thing who was an albino. I mean, I think that's but I would never single them out by saying, oh, because of their genetic weirdness, they're the evil one or whatever. That's a long ago type of thing that I don't. So that's first thing you're going to do. First thing, avoid those kind of lazy tropes. That's a lazy writing trope, and I shouldn't have included that. And in my mind, I was, like I said, he was supposed to be reminiscent of the albino from Foul Play, which is this old 70s movie I loved when I was a kid, which I almost thought I should watch it again for this show, but I think I would just be horrified by it. It's Chevy Chase and Private Benjamin. I can't even remember that actor's name anymore. What was her name?
Goldie Hawn.
Goldie Hawn. Thank you, Arctic Black. Point of luck to Goldie Hawn for Goldie Hawn from Arctic Black. Yeah, I saw that. Okay, so I'm old enough. I saw that in the theater, and like, I remember sitting there with my uncles and my cousins and just laughing our heads off how funny that movie is. And it's a lot. It's got Dudley Moore in it, who's one of my absolute all-time favorites. But I don't know. I'm afraid to look now. I'm afraid to see how it would hold up with my modern eyes. Okay, so first thing I would do is you should feel young, Artie. If you're not in your 50s, you know what I'm saying? So a couple of things. I didn't read the stats for Gomer Rattlestash, who is the illusionist who is pretending to be the sea captain known as the albino. The sea captain is actually somewhere else in the dungeon, and he uses his the earring of subterfuge. It's a magic item. You find out if you take it off and touch it to a person and put it back in, you become a complete, perfect duplicate, illusionary duplicate for them for 24 hours. So he keeps. I thought it was a nice item. I could see using, like, I want to keep that in the final. Maybe a cool, a cool kind of thing for a thief or an assassin. And but it also, it's a plot point to it. Also, is the reason why he hasn't killed the albino yet. He can't do it, or he can no longer use his disguise charm. And there, of course, are also stats in there for the Sasquatch, which was my new monster I made up for. I put up AD&D stats for a Sasquatch, and again thought it was funny that I thought, why the joke in my head was, Sasquatches, you never find them. You only find tracks. You don't see them out in the woods. It's because they're masters of burrowing. When they see you coming, they burrow down deep down, and then as a burrowing mammal, gnomes can speak their language, so that's why they're friends in this particular thing, and and that is how my brain works.
So one thing that I've moved towards too, Brendan, moved away from, like you said, physical traits as kind of defining personality.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I've definitely moved away from that more in my more recent design. I tend to emphasize behaviors, and not like, again, not like stereotypical behaviors, but I like to, come up with something that's kind of unique behavior of that NPC and kind of build around that.
yeah,
Um, and it doesn't have to be like something very overt necessarily. Um, maybe it's just that they tend to dart their eyes to the side a lot when they're talking to people.
sure.
And just something like that, like having that in a description to the players, I think invites a lot of like the players, like, well, thinking like, okay, well, what is it about this? Why is he darting his eyes to the side? What's he looking at? Is he nervous? What is, so I tend to do some of that stuff with my NPCs more often. And I feel like it makes them more three-dimensional in some ways than
Oh
just
yeah,
having a
absolutely.
descriptive kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, because I've seen, obviously plenty of adventures with whether it's skin tone or cross-eyed or, whatever physical characteristics that the author kind of threw in. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do agree that we've kind of moved away from some of that maybe.
And rightfully so. That is a trope at least as old as Charles Dickens.
Yeah.
That someone's physical appearance somehow matches. And I get why you do it. It's a very neat
Sure.
shortcut. It's a very, you know what I mean? Like, oh, it's the guy
Mhm.
with a hook or a scar or whatever. And like, but this is the problem, okay? Like, okay, if I put a character, I might put a character in a thing with a scar, because in my mind, a scar shows he's tough. They're tough.
Mhm.
Whoever took this blow, they survived it. They got something to show that they did it. And that means that they're tough. But somebody else sees that and go, oh, they have a scar. That means they're evil. And that's the
Yeah.
problem with this kind of thing, that the interpretation of these kind of like lazy tropes, it just, you can
Mhm.
do, it's not hard to do. And I'm real, like, there's more about both the like the albino. You find out he just wants to retire. He was like literally out of the game when the gnome illusionist finds him and takes Dr. Bunyan. I love it. The gnome illusionist takes over his life and his crew and starts, stealing all this money and everything, and
Mhm.
robbing ships and the whole nine yards. So yeah, I feel like there's more in it, but I would say that neither of them, I guess it's a little bit more interesting that you have this latter day villain that just really he's old, he can't do it anymore, and he just wants to be
Mhm.
able to put it all behind him and retire to I think at some point it mentions he's got a villa someplace he's paid for with his ill-gotten gains.
Mhm.
So we'll see how your paladin deals with that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because this is old AD&D. So
Mhm.
um, but yeah, I hope, I think they are more fleshed out in the rest of the adventure, but they're not well fleshed out like by any stretch of the imagination.
Mhm.
The gnome illusionist is this greedy guy that just wants to steal gold. He doesn't have any much to him other than he's very deceptive, and he's so that all needs tuned up as well. But yeah, definitely I would say if you are designing a thing, a little bit of personality goes a long way when you are describing your NPCs,
Mhm.
and yet better rather than have them be, oh, it's the guy with the whatever. And they can still have a look. I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's interesting to kind of have things that go along with them, but maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be tied into their physicality. It can be their outfit or their,
Mhm.
the people they hang around with, or whatever, something to differentiate them visually, and definitely
Yeah.
something for the artist,
Yeah, I
but
just think I agree. I don't lead I lead with the behavioral stuff a lot, but yeah, obviously they might have a scar or they might be balding or they might be who knows what. And you kind of can throw that in. I feel more comfortable not leading with that because I
yeah,
feel like the interactions is not based on whether they're losing their hair, it's on what kind of behaviors are they exhibiting. So,
exactly, yeah. And I will say this though, like this is the AD&D version. Now,
yeah.
if I was going to do something for Dungeon Crawl Classics with the same like character, man, he would be all over corruptions at this point. He's like a
Yeah.
sixth level caster. I'd have,
Mhm.
I really love that about DCC. I think that's legit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
if you've got one of your hands is a snake, it's because that's a definite sign that you played the game and one time it came out badly for you, at least.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I think that's completely legit. But it's not like, oh well, he's evil because he's whatever Creole. I can say that because I'm Creole, but or whatever it happens to be. You know what I mean? It's not about his race. It's not about their appearance. It's just about like, you can focus in on something that happened to them. And I was trying not to. I remember when I first sat down to this, I was thinking, oh, he's a pirate. So what? Eye patch, peg leg, hook. You know what I mean? Like it's so, that shorthand is so, it's there for a reason. It does make it really, really easily, but it's too easy, create new tropes. If you're going to do something like that, find a new, the fleshing out your key NPCs is a huge way to give your adventure verisimilitude. You know what I'm saying? And, give them more personality. So, yeah. So for this particular room, let's say we came up with a better motivation for Rattlestash other than steal money and then not get killed by adventurers who are trying to get you to stop stealing money, then you can flesh out this encounter with something that would allow him to, that would maybe make it a more interesting encounter. Like, let's say, I'm trying to think of an example. Let's say, for example, he is stealing all of this money, but he's been sneakily, he's been supporting his family with it. So he might, rather than run, he might beg on behalf of his family and say, no, don't kill me. This is all I've only, which now, is that going to stop a pack of murder hobos? I don't know, but it would give something. It would give some kind of depth to the encounter, though, that's not there right now. Right now, this is literally an evil villain in there with his big henchman sidekick, Bruiser, and they're going to get in a fight, and then they're going to run away when the whatever it is comes up. So yeah, flesh out first step. Flesh out your NPCs better than I did in this particular adventure. Also, so here's another thing. Initially, this is just a bad mistake. Yeah, exactly. Hector says DCC has taught me to describe a baddie's weird feature instead of saying exactly what they are. Personality is a great way to emphasize that, and that's exactly right. You know what I'm saying? Totally true. Hey, Joan, what's up? Joan of Arc Destroyer in the house. Great to see you on, Joan. Yeah, so that's a key thing. So I want to talk about the dimensions of this room. I mentioned that the room is only 4.5 feet tall, and that the escape hatch out of here is 2 feet wide. It's a 3 feet narrow wide thing in there. How is this crazy Sasquatch fighting or doing anything in here? You know what I mean? Like, what's he doing? Like, is he on all fours? It doesn't. Maybe he is, but you have to discuss that in the text. I either need to change the dimensions of this room or describe how this is going to work.
Well, and I tell you what, though, when I heard you talk about the dimension of the room, I mean, I loved it initially, and yeah, the Sasquatch, that obviously is a little bit of cognitive dissonance there, but I love the fact that, yeah, I do love the fact that the room presents some unique challenges to a party that's got some humans in it, right? And it makes sense that if this is the gnome's living quarters, that he doesn't need a high ceiling.
Yep.
And so, yeah, the Sasquatch needs to be addressed, but I do love the room with a 4-foot ceiling as kind of a, wow, how are you going to handle this? Yeah, it's an environmental challenge. And I like to throw those in, not every room, but certainly have a few rooms in my dungeon that have some kind of challenge where they're going to have to deal with something along that, whether it be a sloped floor, slippery surface, something that, where they got to think a little bit more about, okay, it's not just run in this room and ransack it. There's a little bit more to it. So, maybe the Sasquatch has been shrunk down to size, right? Maybe he's been shrunk.
I think what I would do is there's that little hallway that connects to the beginning. I think I would say that the hallway itself is normal height or even 10 foot tall. And then the inside room is there. So now the Sasquatch is inside the regular part of it. He can't go into his buddy's things, but he can stand there in front of it and block it off. And if they do get past him, by the time they get there, hopefully I've already cast my mirror image. So now there's a whole squad of me. And yeah, the fighters and everybody else, all the humans will be at a disadvantage because then now, they're trying to bring their big weapons to bear. Like if anybody had a halberd in there or a two-handed sword, especially, I'd be like speed factor in them. You know what I mean? I'd be bringing that up, it's old AD&D, but that was my idea initially, but if there's a dissonance there, you're right. It makes no sense to have, you can't have it both ways as a designer, you know what I'm saying? So if you want to have a cool room like that, it's going to present a challenge, then you have to figure in like how it actually works and what it's like to live in those things. One of the things that drives me nuts about a lot of like dungeons that I've read is especially dungeons that have an ecology, things that actually have creatures in there like that are running around, like that, patrolling, living there or whatever, is that very often they'll have these crazy traps that are in the middle of somewhere. And, it's like, how many bugbears a year die because they forget or they make a mistake and they hit the spike pit or the pendulum gets them or the the crossbow. So you at least have to, now I would definitely address that. If it was it's one thing if it's an ancient crypt and they're having to like Indiana Jones their way inside of there and no one's been in there for however long and it's specifically that way. And when you go in, but if it's in the middle of an area, if there's like no way for the people in the north part of your dungeon to go to the south part of your dungeon to eat or get out or go on their raids or whatever without going past this wicked trap. I want to know how that works. You got to deal with that as a designer. You know what I'm saying? Like, tell me what the it's not even hard. One sentence. All of the creatures know about this, so they take the long way around and go through area blah 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 or whatever it happens to be. But if you're going to put those kind of hazards in there and put those hazards in there because those hazards are awesome.
Yeah.
Just figure out how the people, who live in this thing deal with them. If it's a pressure plate, maybe the giant rats aren't heavy enough to set it off, but then is your halfling, you know what I mean? Figure that kind of stuff out. Look, I write X-Crawl. X-Crawl is all Funhouse, but it's all Funhouse because it's X-Crawl and I can get away with it because it's X-Crawl. If you're going to have a thing like this, then you got to have a reason, how this works, for whatever reason,
Yep.
So, that is all well and good. So let's talk. So what else could we do? So I feel like the accoutrements of the room are pretty good. You know what I mean? The lap desk, you don't see those very, very often, and the hidden keys inside there. If I'm an adventure, if I'm an adventurer, I would be looking for keys or that kind of thing. And it rewards smart play, I think, when you have a lot of hidden items that are inside of your dungeon. Where's the cafeteria? Actually, there is a cafeteria in this dungeon. So if I can't show you I should have the map up as a graphic, but I didn't know if it was okay. Also, there's no official map. Like the map for this dungeon is a Brendan's original. Ting. And it is not great. It's probably my best work, which means it's a D- for as far as map goes in a dungeon. But you would have to like go south and then go back up. And part of this is a living dungeon, so if you go in there and you make a lot of noise, you are going to, right? Meat is back on the menu. If you are in the dungeon and you are making noise and making your way through there, you will encounter the gnome illusionist and his and Bluto, the Sasquatch. You can encounter them much earlier. This is assuming you would only find them in this area if you would very carefully stealth your way in and managed not to raise the alarm as you snuck your way inside there. So it's very possible. And here's what I should have mentioned it. I should have at least said, he might not be encountered here. You know what I mean? Because if they could get in there, they might have fought him in the cafeteria or anywhere else in the earlier part. If they kick the door open, if it's 3 paladins and a wizard, it's like, all right, all you evil things, get out here. So a little bit more clarity, and the writing isn't great. That's the thing, and that takes a while. But like, nothing will hurt your dungeon worse than unclear language, like that repetitive sentence. That's like you know what I mean? It's like nails on a chalkboard to me now. I wouldn't have even noticed that when I first wrote this in 2009, July 2009. The Tori Amos music for the abused bugbears. In the light of an angel. So
no, I agree though. I like the room dressing. I like that you've got things in there. Like I do always try to include things that are kind of normal type of, you got your wicker basket with gnome size clothes, you got, but at the bottom of it, buried a potion of invisibility. I love that. So I was like, oh, that's clever. So yeah, I like that for sure. I like the keys kind of being, there as a way that they can get to the keys if they are smart about things. Yeah, I definitely try to put little things in there like that into my rooms too. So that part of it, I really enjoyed, and I thought you did a good job with that. Or even the detail of like the white kelp poison, right? Kind of cool.
Give it a little specific, and that is something I really always try to do. Just a little bit of specificity when you describe that kind of thing goes a long way. And at some point, years later, that someone's going to open up their spiral notebook and be like, oh, I got a dose here of white kelp poison. Ooh, what the hell? Where did that come from?
That could be a whole adventure right in itself.
Right?
A little hook.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Put those little details into your dungeon. Those are huge, and like that's what's going to make it stand out. Those small things. And to me, the key for me as a designer, and I'm better at it now than I was in 2009, is that visualization. See it. See yourself walking into that room, and okay, like I got to cramp down because I'm too tall to get in this room, so I gotta lean down, so it's all claustrophobic and weird. If you think about it, his hamper is probably 3 feet tall. So like that would be a real object. Like you couldn't get around that there in the room. You might not even know what that lap desk is if you saw it leaning, over it and again there, but like see what it would, look like. Now, here's the thing, however, from a design standpoint, if you're designing for your home campaign, you can put in all the details if you want. But if you are working for publication, you're up against word count, You can't be infinitely verbose, which is a shame, but it's also exactly how it should be. You won't like, you shouldn't spend a paragraph describing a sunset or or an odor. A couple of words, a couple of lines, and do that concisely. And working against word count makes you make those decisions, would make things read quicker and go faster. You guys are all. Y'all are making me hungry. I haven't eaten yet, guys.
Yeah.
So if you're watching on YouTube, there's a big debate over what might be in the cafeteria of the dungeon. So they're all cracking me up. God, we have 2 minutes left. How do we do this, Cory? All right, guys. So look, we are at the end. We are. I'm afraid we are at the end of our thing. So let me say again. I'll put it into the chat again. I want to talk about your rooms. This show is for us to tune your stuff up. So email me. My email is everywhere on the Goodman Games website. But if you're watching it on YouTube, Brendan at goodman-games.com. Maybe we can put that into the chat room. But please send me your stuff. And the next time we do a show, maybe we will feature your room, and maybe we'll talk about how we can tune that up.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you having me on to help tune your room up, and maybe I'll send you one of mine here in return. Somebody else can tune mine.
I would absolutely love that. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you all for watching. And if you're watching again, if you're watching on YouTube, again, thank you so much for tuning into the Goodman Games official channel. And please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell, and we will keep sending you cool stuff, because that's what we're all about over here at the Goodman Games World Headquarters here in Kennesaw, Georgia. So
awesome.
Southeast East Campus. So thank you all so much, and I think we've learned something tonight. The show needs to be longer because there's a lot to talk about. So we'll do that for next time. Thanks again, and we will see all of y'all next time on Dungeon Tuneup with Weird Uncle Brendan. Peace.
See ya.